What's going on, everybody? FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays, a quick live stream to help you get closer to accomplishing your dreams. I'm your host, Joe Spite, and I do represent the fresh. Listen, I want to start off by saying thank you to each and every person that took time out of their day to watch this, whether you're watching on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, or if you're watching a recorded version. I still want to say thank you. But if you haven't already done so, I need you to hit that subscribe button ASAP so that way you can get notifications on whenever we go live. Definitely been having some amazing guests coming up and talking to us about, their careers, their lifestyles, and how they were able to adjust and adapt into the things that they got going on, which are plenty. And today is going to be no different, except in a way we're going to address it a little differently, but we still focusing on lifestyle as a whole. So I got some amazing guests that I'm going to bring to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome first off my guy. I've been knowing him for over a decade. We went to undergrad together. Man, shout out to the homie Malcolm. What's going on, King?
What's good with you, man? I'm doing all right. Happy to be here. Malcolm James Lamar Dixon, located up here in Northern California, Butte Community College. And I oversee the Moja program as well as our Black Leadership and Cultural Center. And then I also DJ on the side. So if you need
DJ
James Dixon, hit me up if you need somebody to bring the vibes.
That's a fact, man. Another person I'm gonna bring up to the stage. Man, it's a guy I've known as well for quite some time, man. Been moving and shaking out there in SoCal. We miss his energy out here in NorCal, but we know he from the East Coast, straight up from New York. Shout out to my man Hakeem. What's going on?
What's going on, King? Man, happy to be here, bro. Thank you again for always opening up your platform, man, and just sharing the space, bro, to have these conversations that we need to have, bro. Malcolm, good to see you, King. I'm ready to get into it. Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So listen, this stems from today. We're going to talk about why Black men don't go to college or haven't been going to college over these past couple years or a couple of decades. Actually, we've been seeing a downtrend in African American male enrollment in colleges. But it started from a video that I want to play that really pissed me off when I saw it. So I'll play this video and then we can kind of talk about it, about it after that and trying to get y'all's reaction. I know you all have seen it already, but I still want to be able to us to talk about it in front of the folks so that way we can have that recorded version. So let me share screen real quick and let's just play this right. Cheer.
Apparently, Black men are not attending college.
Can y'all hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it. It's pretty low, but I can hear it though.
Men at four-year colleges has plummeted. And
well, let me try to make sure that the sound is up. Okay, let me start this over. Hopefully, the sound is better.
Apparently, Black
men sounds better.
Attending college, and this is a horrendous trend. The number of Black men at four-year colleges has plummeted, and at Howard University, there are as many non-Black students as there are Black men. Howard is just 19% Black men. There's an array of reasons why this is happening, but the number one thing sociologists point to is something they call the belief gap, that a lot of young Black men don't believe that they can or should be able to handle college intellectually or financially. Guys, college is a critical part of gaining the intellectual skills you need to get into the middle class. Black women have known for years and years that they need degrees to overcome racism and misogyny and get as far as they can in life. And they have become the most educated demographic in the country. But leaving Black men out of that trend means a lot of potential wealth that could go into the Black community won't go into the Black community because people who could have become middle-class professionals and intellectuals will not be able to make that leap.
Okay. So
gotta roll the sleeves up, bro. Gotta roll the sleeves up.
I'll start with you, Malcolm. Man, what did you when you first saw that, man? What did you think?
I think that when we talk about the reasons why, well, first of all, that video didn't really get into any of the factors that contribute to why Black men aren't going to college. And so if we're gonna have that conversation, then I think we need to be a little more thorough and willing to investigate some of the reasons why Black men aren't going to college, as opposed to just saying that they're not because of a belief gap. And then the next thing I think is like, what's the definition of a belief gap? Like, and what does that entail? So those are my initial thoughts.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, King Kroon, man, Malcolm, what I said, not Malcolm, Hakeem, man. What did you what was your first thoughts when you saw that video?
I'm wondering, who he's getting his pat on the backs from, man, getting his head patted from, right? I think it just reeks of, a lot of just feminist talking points, a lot of just lack of nuance and thoroughness, and I think with the lack of like examination of the station and condition of Black men and education, right, and not really getting into the root causes, more so talking about like the symptoms, right, and so without really getting to the root, I think for number one, I always when I listen to folks speak, there's certain terms and certain things they use that kind of give me some insight as like to the frame of thought they're like leading with, right, so one thing, right? He mentioned, the sociologist thing, right? I think it's really interesting because, first of all, who are these sociologists? Who are they? Who are the sociologists that you're getting this research from, that you're listening to or reading their research? Are they white sociologists, or are these Black sociologists, Black site? Like, who are you? Who's the frame of reference, and where you're getting these data points? And some of these theoretical frameworks that you're alluding to, right? So with the belief gap, that just goes to, again, just the history of like pathologizing Black men and kind of putting the onus on Black men of like our belief and the belief, like there's an intrinsic pathology that leads to like Black men not feeling like they can go to college off of their belief system. We know there's so many other factors that are external factors that lead to why Black men aren't in college at the same rate as our sisters and peers across our race. And so not to get into that, not to get into that nuance and to add that context, it's lazy. It's like lazy. Like you talk about being an intellectual, like that's lazy intellectualism, right? That's lazy to me. And so, and so thinking about who are the sociologists, the pathologizing of Black men with belief system, but even get into Howard and all the different things like using the HBCU. And, I think, there's so much that we'll talk about in this conversation, but I think, the first thing that comes to mind with the HBCU piece and thinking about the timing, right, of the conversation and the timing. Like right now we're in a space where now we're like, okay, like, wow, this is really an issue. Like that we see Black men aren't in college. Like, oh, the data this has been something that's been going on since Obama was in office, right? And so like I think part of it too, from a media standpoint, I think trying to like really bring this to the forefront now because there's a particular person in office and like trying to mention these things, I think is really interesting too, that we'll get into. But this has been something that's been happening for a minute, and part of it is tied to, right, the K through 12 system that he didn't even mention. That you can't even get the post secondary, or he didn't even mention K through 12, like where most of the conveyor belt of the school to prison pipeline occurs and all the different things that happen. As well. And I think one of the things that we'll talk about, I want to make sure I mention here, is that like my perspective on this is there's a lot of holes in what he said, but the other part, there's some things around our culture and our value system, like in our warped value system that we have as Black people when it comes to how we go about education and how we even strategize around college and making sure that we having the right kind of strategy to like for what majors we're taking and what those majors yield and the labor force and the marketplace, having the requisite skill set. So we'll talk about all those different things, but I'll land my plane there without getting too long-winded.
No doubt. And I want to just let the folks know on Instagram, I can't see the comments for some reason right now. I can't even see how many people is like looking at it. So if you want to, interact, I'm gonna try to log in on Instagram on my phone on the live. But if you want to interact, you're more than welcome to move over to YouTube where I can post your comments and stuff like that. I'm gonna still try to log in on my phone and see if I can see it. But yeah, I'm having some issues seeing the comments and whatnot. But I think both y'all hit the nail right on the head. I do want to acknowledge there is I got a couple of different DMs. A lot of folks told me to talk about it on the show. That's the reason why I did it. Because at first, there's I know Hakeem, because we be,
Yes, sir.
messaging, texting all the time about like there's a lot of stuff that that I see online that really frustrate me, but I just choose to kind of ignore it and don't acknowledge
Yeah.
it, whatever. But I
Yeah.
do want to acknowledge there was a friend I was talking to via DMs, and she was talking about I don't know if she wanted me to really tell her name, but she was saying that the article, which this Torre was basically talking about a New York Times article that recently got released that talked about, the lack of African American male enrollment in Black HBCUs, right?
Yeah.
And he was referring to this article. Let me share it with the people just so that way at least you can get some eyes on it. For those that are watching, in case you're not familiar with it, I just want to make sure I can put your eyes on that information as well too, so you can see what it is. But this is the article here, and it looks like the author seems to be a Black man, but the author's at Black colleges, a stubborn gender enrollment gap keeps growing. And I think one of the things that pissed me off about this particular article is that it frames it in a way is that like Black men are just deciding, right, not to go to college. Like it's just their decision only, right? Which, don't get me wrong, they do play a part in it.
For sure.
But I also think that this article glosses over something that's super important. Here's the paragraph that says the cause are many, right? Higher college costs, the immediate financial needs of Black families, high suspension rates in high school, and a barrage of negative messages about academic potential all play roles in the decline of Black male enrollment in college completion. So I feel like what they did was they took a minute to gloss over some of the main key points. And instead, he's saying these sociologists said that, it's a gap in their ability to feel like they can compete intellectually or financially in regards to the obligations in higher academia. And sociologists, as a sociologist, know that this is not true. They know this is not the main. That's the part that really pissed me off with this article, is that they painted that as the main factor. The main reason we're having these issues is because they feel like there's a deficit, a belief gap in their ability to compete financially and academically, and that is not true. If you work with Black male students that are in education, whether it's K through 12, if you actually talk to Black men around the globe, you will know that there's no disbelief that they have the ability to academically be successful. No, the issue is college is expensive. They are the heads of their households. They have to take care of their families. The issue is, in between their K through 12 experience, they didn't see many Black males as educators. They saw them more on the football fields, on the basketball, on the track. They saw them more there. And that's where they got their praise at. And so that's where they see them more acting and being as entertainers more than educators. So in their case experience, they didn't see any Black men. Whenever they were in education, they saw themselves overly policed, overly suspended, overly punished in institutions. And so why, now that they become a free functioning society, an adult in society, why would they voluntarily choose to pay money to become into this environment that already told them that this is where you're going to be over policed, over punished, and devalued? It makes zero sense. That aspect. So that's one. The other issue that I have with the video specifically is this idea of painting Black women as the model minority. Right? What they're doing is and I see a lot of people do this. So Black women are the most educated group. The most educated. First off, that's a lie.
That's a lie. It's not true.
Let's just, I know, because I did the research and I wrote my thesis. It's published in my thesis about the graduation numbers. I also did the research this morning just to make sure, hey, maybe a few years the numbers have changed, and it's not, right? Just like Hakeem and I in our earlier, when we did the show last year, they talked about how Black women are out earning Black men. That's a lie. It's not true. It's literally not true. I want people to understand this. And I'm not trashing Black women, because I love to see y'all. I want to see y'all be great. When they're talking about Black women as the most educated group, what they're saying is over the years, there has been a growth of Black women that have chosen to go into higher education. And so let's say the percentage went from 4% to 6%. That's a huge growth. That's a larger growth than any other demographic, right? That's what they're saying. There's a larger growth. So imagine this. Let's say you go to an HBCU and let's say there's 10,000 Black students and there's 10 Native American students. If 20 next year Native American students decide to enroll in the university, that's a 100% increase. Can they now say that Native Americans are the most educated group at your institution? No, it's not. It's a talking point that that we as a community have used in order to try to minimize the importance or the value of Black men in order to uplift Black women and paint them as a model minority, which literally goes to the gender wars and the separation of the Black family, because they know they want Black women to think that Black men don't want them, even though 85, I looked it up this morning, 85% of all Black men that are married to Black women.
Come on.
And if you do them, and even if you go into people who make over $100,000 a year or more, 85% of those Black men that are married to Black women.
I'm one of them.
They try to make Black men seem like they don't like Black women. They try to make Black women seem like they don't need Black men. And so I need people, when you're regurgitating this information, I need you to listen and think about it. Black women make up 6.8% of all degrees awarded. That is not enough to be the most educated. It doesn't. So we need to stop using these kind of talking points to minimize the importance of Black men and to stop using them as a model minority, just the way the United States uses the Asian American as a model minority to try to discredit or disprove or disbelieve or devalue Black folks, Latinx folks, right? They try to use that to say, you're not important, you're not valuable, why don't you be like them? When we say, oh, Black women are the most educated group, and Black women know that if you get a degree, you're going to be better off. You don't think Black men know that too? You don't think Black men are aware that if you get a degree, you're more likely to make more money? They absolutely do know that. The problem is their responsibilities versus the responsibilities of Black women are very different. And the education that they receive from K through 12 is very different, because they still, even if they don't see Black women as educators, they still see women. And so they identify a little bit more than the Black men do, because Black men don't typically see male educators until they get after, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. They might go till middle school before they end up seeing. I just went on a tangent, Hakeem, but what you want to say about
No, that's fine. And I think what you said directly, everything you said was spot on, bro. I think the cold part of this is that these talking points are literally, and we talked about this before briefly, around like how education has been weaponized. What's up, son? Want to say hi? How you doing? Want to say hi? Come say hi. Hey.
What's going on, King?
Yeah, go to mommy. I love you. Close the door, okay? I love you. And so how education is being weaponized to push to fan the flames of this gender war, right? And so, and what I've been saying is that education has been weaponized to pit Black men and Black women, to put them against each other, right? So here's the cold part. Two things. One is Black women are most educated, right? So if now Black men are deemed as not as educated when it comes to picking partners and picking folks to marry and build relationships with families, we have added value and value to how you are as a potential spouse or a partner to your level of educational attainment, when that has nothing to do with how you can be a spouse or a partner or a husband, right? And so what that's done is that it's distorted the idea of who's marriageable, right? And who so that's another aspect to it too, because now we have so many sisters that have brought into this, and they look at brothers who may be in trade school, maybe blue collar brothers. Oh, they ain't got their degree, so I can't be. But the brothers are doing well off, but it's just blue collar dudes. They didn't go to college. And the other part is, when we talk about the racial wealth gap, you wouldn't think with all this education that the racial wealth gap would have changed. It's gotten worse, and they're predicting that in 20, 30 years, our wealth will be at zero. Right? So it's so oxymoronic that the cold part is that the wealth that he's saying that could have been generated for our community, it's not about black men not going to school and going to college. That black wealth is being ate up by loans, by student loan debt. The income that you would have, or the disposable income that you would have to be able to invest and do this and do that, is being ate up by student loans and these predatory loans and these interest rates that you're going to be paying off for 20, 30 years after you graduate in your 20s, still paying for a loan in your 50s, right? So those are the conversations we really have to have and talking about when they're talking about eating up our wealth and the racial wealth gap. And so I think with those 2 points around us formulating families and coming together, and how that's been put against black men and women intentionally to try to like have us think that, you know, we are at odds with each other from an educational standpoint and all that type of thing. And also when it comes to the how we build wealth in our community and where our money is really going, and what's really one of the things that's really stopping us from really building generational wealth in a real way, for sure.
I love that, and I appreciate that, man. Malcolm, what you got to anything you want to add on to that?
Man, y'all touched on so much, and I was trying to figure out, I'm like, what's something that I could say that hasn't been said. And I guess I could just lean on just my experience in working with black male students and black women, and just the things that I'm noticing. And I think it's interesting that the article certainly frames it in a way where you have like a model minority in the black woman, and the black man is essentially being framed as like the opposite of a model minority. Is like, this is what you don't want. Like when I work with my students, it's just, the article doesn't really add up, because like my students, my black male students that come to me want to be on campus. They're excited to be they're engaged. And when it comes to the community events that I do, like Black Family Night, or we have Black Family Day coming up soon in Orville, and I'm working with community members, pastors, ministers, and you know, our African American Family Cultural Center, I get a lot of folks that come up to me, especially black men and elderly black men, who are like, what you're doing is really, really good. And we need to see more of this in the community. And when I really think back on it, you know, when we think back about our days at Chico State and the type of involvement that we did there, it was regular to get that sort of affirmation from elderly black men in particular. And so I think that the lack of representation that students face in their K through 12 experience is something that plays a large impact on whether or not they see themselves in college. But then regardless of if they see themselves or not, just because they don't see themselves in college doesn't mean they don't end up in school. You feel me? So then once they do get to school, then they may not see people that look like them. They may not see other black men. I mean, I could say for myself, I mean, I had a kindergarten teacher that was a black male, and I had an 11th grade history teacher that was a black male, and that was it. My entire K through 12 experience. And then in college, I had 2 black male professors. I had a African American musical history male instructor that was black, and then I had a black male instructor in my communications course for my major. And so just in, you know, the entire, you know, K through 12 and undergrad bachelor's experience, I've had a total of 4 instructors. And I'll go ahead and throw a 5th one in, that my father was a computer science instructor for Sacramento City College in a department chair, but he wasn't my direct teacher. He was my father. So he taught me in other ways. And so this lack of representation sets up, you know, black men in particular to not get all the support resources that other groups may get. The other thing that I think about is in 2008, you know, I went to school, started my freshman year at Chico State, and I turned 18. And as we all know, that was the year Obama ran. That was my first time voting. And it's something that I'm kind of thinking about. Right. So, right. We came in the same year. So one of the things I thought about was like, if you look at Barack Obama, like to yes, he was a positive role model and is a positive role model. I mean, I remember after he won, I realized like, yo, I grew up my whole life never even considering myself as an option for something like president of the United States.
Right.
Because I hadn't seen it. And I was like on this high, you know what I mean? Like I was like, yo, like maybe I could be president. I'm like a young adult, but when I reflect on like his time, in office, I mean, low key, like to the message that you get is that you got to be perfect.
Right.
You got to color in the lines. You can't make no mistakes. And then even if you do, we still gonna find something to try and create barriers and obstacles. And so this idea that Black men, are not college material or don't want to go to college, I just feel like it's misguided because oftentimes, with other groups, they get lots of chances, they get lots of support. If they don't reach the bar, then it's like we'll bring the bar to you or we'll lift you up. But with us, it's like as soon as we even half step just a little bit, it's like you're out. And now we gotta hold you back a grade, or now you're suspended and you're missing tons of school to where when you do come back, you're held back a grade because you're not able to complete all the work. And so when you have these sorts of barriers before you even get there, and then once you get there, you don't see anybody that looks like you, which means they're not going to be paying attention to, like, they're not going to notice the nuances of like what it looks like for a young Black brother that needs support. And then they may classify somebody that's struggling as somebody who's off task, a problem, doesn't care. Whereas if you look at, our white male counterparts, if they're in the similar situation, it's like, okay, well, let me connect you with this person. Let me make sure you get this support. Oh, I got a grant. Oh, I have. So, it's like, I think that oftentimes it's not us. Cause I mean, we sitting here talking, but like when we talk about like the institutions and, even the current administration, so on and so forth, they don't offer the same levels of support to Black male students. And then, if we don't perform on minimal support as is, then it's like, yeah, see, it doesn't work. And then they yank it.
Yep.
And so we lay underneath us to really, get a rhythm and actually start to be successful. So, those are my thoughts.
And I would add to that, man, you said a lot there, King. One of the things that I think, and maybe Josiah maybe was going to touch on this, but we'll see. I think we talked about it before, even going back to the President Obama piece, right? The cold part, even with that, right? He launched My Brother's Keeper, MBK, and got so much pushback. So much pushback that he literally had to can it. Like there was no more My Brother's Keeper to the scale of what he envisioned it to be. And so even when he was trying to intentionally do something to bring awareness and to bring intentional support to Black male youth, as far as education and that upliftment and that support, it literally got so much pushback and resistance from our own people and from, of course, the folks as well. So that's the interesting dynamic there that, again, Torre ain't mentioning all of this stuff, right? Those aspects of those things that really have thwarted our progress in that way, right? So I just wanted to add that part to it as well.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned that my friend was messaging me and they were saying that they felt like the video didn't do a good job articulating what the article had essentially said, right? And I think that, and I did tell him that I told her that I was gonna mention it during the I told her I was going to mention it during the show. So and I appreciate that perspective, right? Because it still lets me, because at first I had to reread the article again. I take a deep breath, get my emotions, you feel me, out of it, reread it again. But again, I think, again, the article does mention all those things that I talked about. It talks about the cost, it talks about, the suspension rates, the families that they have to support, all of these different things. But my issue is that the article, I feel like the article was more of a knock against Trump than it was talking about the Black male enrollment. I noticed that from the jump. It was really more
using it to score political points, man.
You feel me? And so I did peep that. But I think that what they were doing was, again, trying to make it seem like as if Black men, one, are just choosing not to go to college for the very few that are, for the ones that are college eligible. And it discredits the over suspensions, it discredits their K through 12 experience. It discredits, it doesn't mention the lack of representation. It doesn't mention the lack of the lack of resources due to being of neighborhoods of poverty. It doesn't mention all of the disparities that these people have to face just to be able to get through high school, right? And so when you go through, when you do that, it's like this. It's and I kind of mentioned this to my homegirl in the DMs too. I was like, that's like saying Black people commit more crimes than any other race, without talking about the fact that they're over policed, without talking about the fact that they face severe punishment, without talking about the school to prison pipeline, without talking about institutional racism and how the police are used to more implement those racist policies and factors, right? Like if you just say, oh, Black men or Black people commit crimes more than other races, well, yeah, that's to a certain degree true, but it's really not, because you have to contextualize it, right? And this is where it's important to do qualitative studies. The part that pissed me off about this article was this was a qualitative article, and the qualitative article talked about, it skipped over all the other shit and just focused on, oh, well, some people, they have all these things and so they worry. And it's like, bro, again, if you talk to Black people on a more consistent basis, Black men specifically, you'll know ain't nobody scared of no fucking classes. Excuse my language, bro.
You're good, bro.
Like, bro, when I was in school, like I know Malcolm, you know this, bro. My sister was killed, bro, when I was in college. I wasn't stressing about a test. Excuse my language again. Fuck this test. I don't care if I fail this test or fail this class. I can go back and make up the class or test. I got real shit going on at home. I have family evicted. My cousin got shot. It was in a coma for 2 weeks. I got real shit going on at home. You think I care about this exam? No, that's not like, and again, a lot of people who were faced with the circumstances that I was faced with would have quit, and justifiably so. They would have been like, yo, bro, my family just got evicted. I got to go get a job and help them.
Some
like,
bread.
Somebody just knocked down one of mine. It's time to go get revenge. Like all of these different things that people don't take into consideration is because this is where intersectionality is supposed to come in and understand the Black male perspective. But what we do is we say, oh, well, Black women understand how important it is. And even Torre's, his tone was, you all need to recognize that you're missing out on money and opportunity because you're not going to college, when that's not the thing.
A farce, man. It's a farce.
We're people who work in institutions. We know the system is not set up for us to be successful. So to then blame us and shape the narrative as if this is a choice for us, as opposed to this is something that's been done to us, right? Like do we talk about Black people and be like, you know, y'all, why y'all didn't buy homes in the 40s? Like, why y'all didn't buy houses in the 40s? Like, that's like, do you know how much equity you missed out on because you didn't purchase a house in a nice neighborhood? Why you didn't buy a home in San Francisco in 1927?
Come on, man.
Like, do you know how much money you missed out on? Like, we don't take the narrative like that because it would be unjust, because it's out of context. You're not explaining the fact that that the African-American people had redlining, so they couldn't purchase homes in certain neighborhoods, which means
restrictive covenants, all that.
The equity that the value that went up in those particular areas. So why is it's very interesting that we believe in intersectionality for everyone else other than black men. Why is that?
But it wasn't intended. It wasn't intended to be able to right. I mean, you know, intersectionality wasn't intended to be able to explain the lived conditions and material conditions of Black men, because in that, right, because there's a line with, you know, feminist theory, it would centered us as the boogeyman, right? And so it's hard to humanize the Black male experience in that way, right? We talk about it could be from education, it could be from, you know, domestic violence, early sexual debut, all of these things, right? But how we've been centered to be the aggressors and be the folks who are the ones who you know, getting the because we get a big piece of chicken, you know what I'm saying? We got power and a privilege, we can oppress others. And so I think part of it for intersectionality, that's why it's hard to even think about and to really dissect the Black male experience, really humanize us in a way to where, because once you humanize, then you have to take into account everything you just mentioned, like, and be able to have empathy and understand that, okay, this person was in college, like anybody that was in college and a sister got shot. No matter if you Black, white, like, but because they don't humanize us, they don't give us the benefit of the doubt and say, yo, like, this is why I couldn't go, I didn't finish, right? My mom died my first day of college. I had to go back to Harlem. You know what I mean? So I had to, literally, like, so these are the things that folks don't even, you know what I mean, right? I missed like 3 weeks of school. You know what I mean? So those are the things there. But I'll let good brother Malcolm go in and talk his talk real quick.
Nah, cause y'all, you know what? Cause it goes. See, I didn't lost track of my mind. I got excited. I was like, bro.
Why you think? I'll let you think.
Yeah, because you know, when we talk about when we talk about the Black male experience, and this is something that I bring up all the time, and I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's like, on one hand, we have the privilege of being men, right? But because we're Black, we don't have the privilege of our white male counterparts. And so we're expected to move in similar fashions as our white male counterparts, while simultaneously not having the same level of agency as our white male power counterparts do get from privilege. And so I think it puts us in a position where we're constantly trying to redefine, navigate, and get creative in how we get to whatever our definition of success is. Because if we lean too much into that male privilege, then we're causing a rift between us and our Black women.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, if we don't take advantage of our male privilege, that way we can try and protect and provide for our Black women, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. And so it's like, no matter which direction you turn, you're at a disadvantage. And you know, if we're going back to like our Black male students, again, you know, if we're going to talk about equity, similar to what Josiah is talking about, then we got to make sure that we address all these areas that, you know, students need support, so that way they can be successful. And so, you know, for me, I think it's unfortunate that we're in a space right now where we have an administration that is like loudly, and like, I mean, they ain't even trying to hide it. Like it's like just blatant, just like, yo, like, we are not supporting, you know, the efforts that would help make sure that our Black men are successful. And so for me personally, I feel like I'm getting into a space where, you know, I'm working with the students, and now we have this administration that might potentially make it difficult for us to continue to support those students. And going back to my original point, before we even really get our feet underneath us, because I mean, we got funding and we have grant money, but I feel like it's still early. And so, you know, if we're going to pull the plug before we can even really start to examine, like, you know, why are things working and why are things not working, and then make those adjustments over time, then it's really not allowing us to support our Black male students as best as we can.
But I want to kind of push back a little bit on that, because I feel like, okay, we have this administration, right? This administration has been in since January.
Yeah.
Black male numbers have been declining for decades.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like since the 1970s, really. Like there was a push in the 60s, a huge push, a huge jump. But I want to say since like the 1978, maybe it's been a huge decline, right, in African American enrollment. And from the 80s to 2020, it was mostly Democratic presidents.
Mostly Democratic people and presidents,
you know what I'm saying? And so and I think what we're doing is, and I know I had this conversation with Malcolm before we started. I said, like, what I'm seeing is all of these institutions that are making these radical changes and saying it in the name of, oh, it's just this president, right? And we're scared. My thing is, you were never really down for the cause in the first place.
You were never really doing it, man. Come on, let's talk about it.
It was easy. It was easy, right? Because again, there's times where I say, are the institutions doing anything illegal? No. Okay, so then why are you changing it? Oh, because we don't want to cause any unwanted attention. If what you're doing is not illegal, it doesn't matter if it's unwanted attention or wanted attention.
Right.
It's not, they can't do anything to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But what I think that
If
a
you
lot of
value black men, if you value black men enough, you would be able to not
you
care
would
about
do
the
it.
unwanted attention and do it. Like, you know what I mean? Come
Exactly.
on.
And I think the issue that I have, right, is that what people are doing now is they're gonna blame the downfall or the downward spiral of black men in higher education on the new administration, when in reality it was your administration that did this stuff in the first place. It was the black men started getting locked up under the Clinton administration, right?
Come on, man.
That,
What are you
that
talking
wasn't
about?
that wasn't a Republican president. That was a
What are we
Democratic
talking
president.
about?
So we can't say that it's just this particular administration that's causing it. No,
Yeah.
no. Our society, our country does not value black males who are in prominent positions or in higher spaces of education. They don't. Because if they did, they would actually show it and treat them better, and you would see an increase. How is it that we have access to more information now than ever before, and yet people are saying, oh my goodness, black men just don't want education? That's just not true. Hakeem, I'll let you go.
Man, you cooking, bro. I think that's the wrinkle to it. I think, right? I think part of it is, it reminds me of like all the the corporations that literally fell back from DEI. It wasn't really about DEI in the first place. It was just something they could monetize and fill their bottom line up, right? And so I think, as soon as Target, all the other companies backed out, it was like, I always knew Target wasn't for us. And I mean, all these companies it was doing it because it was beneficial. It was a mutual interest. Right? We call that what is it? Critical race theory is like a convergence, an entrance convergence, where it's like entrance convergence, right? Like, you're talking about theoretical framework. So I think part of it, man, here's the wrinkle I want to add to this, right? I think one of the things that I've been really grappling with is that, and I have a presentation for Compton College coming up even on Friday. I'll send y'all a link to this, but this moment in time is going to really force us to really coalition build in a way that we haven't, because we had so many split interests, right, around all these myriad of identities and not being a monolith and all of this stuff, right? So, but now we got to really we black first. We got to figure this thing out and really coalition build in a real way. And I think so. Two things. The first thing I think is what comes to mind for me is that part of the other aspect of this is that higher ed, we have an enrollment cliff in general. Like, we have an enrollment cliff in general, and higher ed, the value of higher ed is in question. Folks across race are questioning the value of education. Is it worth going into this substantial amount of debt? It's an inflation. It's an economic decision for a lot of people, and a lot of our black men. We have the responsibility to try to be the leaders of our households to make wise decisions economically that could put our families in the best position financially, right? And so a lot of people are really contemplating, is this the best economic choice I could make with going into $100,000 in debt, getting a psych degree or whatever, liberal arts degree or whatever degree it is, and making $50,000 and then being $150,000 in debt or $100,000. I'm already in the red. Then I live in California. Then I got to sort of figure out I get a house when the average house is like $450,000. Like the math is not mathing, right? So there's a lot of decisions that folks are making, and I think here's the thing about it too. Simultaneously, and this may get controversial, but I love it. It's what we do. Like a lot of the black men who are like, yo, we need to stop. We need to get the Democratic plantation, bro. We need to figure some things out. I'm like, we need to get this shit ain't working no more. We've been doing this for 50, 60 years, and our outcomes are different. We need to stop fucking with that plantation. Get off,
bro.
We under attack. But a lot of these same folks, are like now looking at education, because education, like it's all in the same umbrella. It's the same system that's like helping. It's literally helping to destabilize black family and black wealth creation, right? And so we have to now step outside of this and reimagine what education looks like for our community and for our people. Does that look like going to college? It may not, and that's okay. But does it look like, let's build our own co-ops and our own school system, our own institutions, build these type of our own weekend programs, rites of passage programs for our young men, our young black men. These are the things that we're going to have to do that has nothing to do with them. And this is the stuff that I think we need to focus on a lot as far as like value system wise, right? Part of it is the systematic shit they've been doing to us. Like, we know we can get into the data, but now we have to really think about, okay, what's our strategy, right? If you're going to go to college, you got to major in STEM. Like the future is going this direction. right? So how do you major in? How do you align brothers with these majors where they will have a requisite skill set that will automatically give them value in the marketplace, right? We can't because right now this has always happened, right? We think about history and how the labor market has always shifted. We went from brawn and muscles and being in plants and GM and Ford to like brawn, right? Going from brawn to brain and being able to be intellectuals and doing office work and corporate work. So right now we're going into this technological advancement as far as some of the things we're going with AI and cyber, cyber security and all these. So we have to align with that. So we have to figure out how we get in that type of thing. So if you're going to go to college, we can't go to college, and I'm not saying we can't, but let's try to reroute folks to think about other pathways, right? That's one thing. The other thing is I think that I think when it comes to that part is like the rites of passage pieces. How do we make sure that we are helping young brothers really strategize in an intentional way about what that looks like? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be on us to figure out like what that looks like for us too. Because and here's the other part, right? I don't know for you all, but when I went to college, when I graduated college and when I was going to college in the hood, I didn't get as much love. Like I didn't get much support from the community as my homie that was coming home from prison.
Oh, facts. That's facts.
Right? When my homies was coming home from jail, they got clothes, they got fresh, they made sure they was taken care of. The young brother going to school, there was not that same type of support. So these are value system things that we have to work on. How do we add? So if we get the belief part, the belief we already know. We built education. We done gave all these things to civilization. We know that. Some of us know that about ourselves. We have to still teach those things. But when it comes to how do we like create a new value system around all these different things, we have to swing the pendulum, right? Like we cannot be in environments where you going to prison, all this other shit is cool, and then like being smart, you a nerd, you a weirdo. Like we got to change that dynamic too. So I think some of that is going to be internally. We got to change some of those dynamics for us moving forward for sure.
I love that. I did get there's a question that we got in the chat on Instagram Live. It says, "What are y'all's thoughts about seeing entrepreneurship on social media?" I definitely think people overestimate their ability to become successful via entrepreneurship, and I'll just start it off. As an entrepreneur. 100% people are really jumping to the gun when it comes to what entrepreneurialism is, what that life looks like, what it entails, what the possibilities are, and what the probabilities are. A lot of people are like, yo, it's possible for me to be a millionaire. And I'm like, yeah, it's also possible for you to hit the lottery, but that's not something that you should base your life off of, right? Like you shouldn't go walking into the stores and just being like, oh, I'm going to hit the lottery, so I'm going to run up my credit, I'm going to buy all this stuff, and I know I'm going to be able to cover it with a lottery ticket. No, that's not the way to work. And I think a lot of us think that we have this overinflated ego or overinflated idea of what entrepreneurship looks like. Entrepreneurship is dope. It's dope if used in the right way. If you have a job, an 8 to 5, entrepreneurship is what you're doing from 5 to 8. Right, so you're gonna get your sleep, right? You're gonna get your 6 to 8 hours of sleep. You like me, you need about 7 to 8 at this point. I used to only need about 4. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna know 3.5 right now, bro.
I don't know how you doing it. I used to be able to do about 4, but now, bro, if I don't get 6, if I get less than 6, I'm not even touching the gym. It's bad.
That part.
I'm not even going. You know what I'm saying? So, but people have this idea that like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna create a brand, or I'm gonna go and do this. I'm gonna invest in this, and I'm just gonna be a millionaire in 5 years. It doesn't work like that. I think, and I looked up the numbers. I think it said like there's 1.7 million black businesses in America. Only about 200,000 of them make more than $50,000 a year. So most of the people that are entrepreneurs can barely afford to pay for themselves. So that's why people may have other jobs to be able to help fund their entrepreneurship, right? The other thing that's important when we talk about entrepreneurship, here's the thing. We want you to bet on yourself. But most of you betting on yourself are going to lose. And betting on yourself means I take accountability if and when I lose. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? You can put all the money that you can into your business. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to profit. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to take off. It doesn't guarantee that it's
Don't
going to be
guarantee it.
successful. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people who aspire to be into the food industry, right? They want to create their own restaurant. They want to have a bar or a lounge or things like that. Well, if you know the industry, food industries are the ones the first to
Restaurants.
plummet.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. For
It's one of
sure.
the hardest. The restaurant business is one of the
Bars.
hardest to stay in. And
Clubs.
so again, I don't never knock nobody's dream. I'm gonna tell you, I believe in you. I'm gonna help you in
Of course.
whatever way I can. But at the same time, you have to be ready to take the accountability of suffering. I think, and I do think now, over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see entrepreneurship kind of shifting the amount of people that decide to go
For
to
sure.
college, but
Mhm.
that's not why we're at the numbers right now. Most
No.
people are not choosing not to go to college based on my assumptions, because I don't have the data to back this up, but
Yeah.
to my knowledge, most people aren't dissing college because they think they're going to be great entrepreneurs, especially Black men. That's not what it is. It's a variety of other factors other than the entrepreneurship. But I do think that there are a lot of people that I know. And it's crazy because most people that I know that did do this are college graduates. They decided, you know what, I'm just going to solely be an entrepreneur. And it was great up until the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And that's what shifted
right.
a lot of things. And so
A
again,
lot
when
of
you're an
yeah.
entrepreneur, you remember that you're taking the chance. And taking the chance on yourself means you have to be responsible for if it loses, right? And it's the same thing like for people who purchase a home, right? Like for people who purchased a home in 2007, you purchased a home in 2006 or 2005, you took a chance. You're like, hey, I'm going to purchase this home. It's great. But also taking that chance means if the market collapses,
Market crash.
you're responsible for it, and you have to be able to take accountability. But I don't know what are y'all thoughts on any of that? I'll start with you, Malcolm.
I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to be willing to put the time and energy into it. And just from my own personal experience, being a DJ for 22 22 years, starting out in my bedroom and doing college house parties to doing nightclubs, bars, destination weddings, community events, so on and so forth. There's ups and downs, and the thing that has allowed me to continue to do it is because I do have a full-time job that allows me to explore my other strengths. So my public speaking skills, my ability to network and communicate, which all go into honestly being a DJ, but like I'm able to do it in higher ed. And so I think you have to be willing to invest in yourself, and sometimes that gets unfortunately misconstrued to like, okay, so that means I'm gonna go all in on this thing, not realizing that, like, as you said, if it fails, then it all goes away, and it could be done just like that. And so I think that it's like you should do both. You should do both. Like you said, your 8 to 5, your 9 to 5, like that's your first investor. And so like the idea of like going all in, which could leave you to just being hungry enough to grind it out. I mean, you might be sticking it out and grinding it out way more than you have to, versus if you would have, had a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, where you get to develop other skill sets that you could carry over into your entrepreneurial aspirations or jobs or careers. And then not only do you have those skills that you can use inside of the thing that you're pursuing in entrepreneurship, but you also have the funds. So now you can like outsource some of the things that aren't your strengths to other people. Versus if you're going all in, if you don't have those strengths, I mean, you could do it probably, but like you'd be driving yourself into the ground and taking away from the thing that that you initially went in there to
For
go
sure.
do.
Absolutely. And I know, Hakeem, I know you got to get out of here soon, so I definitely want to give you some more time to anything you want to add to that.
Oh yeah. Nah, I think I definitely hit on the head. I think when it comes to the entrepreneurship piece, I think education, that was the great equalizer for our people, right? At a moment in time of like getting educated and being that equalizer. I do think that right now we're in a place where entrepreneurship, creating businesses, creating industries, expanding your skill set, having an expansive skill set, and understanding how to add value into the marketplace? What does that look like? What do people need? How can you be of service to others? I think a lot of times think about entrepreneurship, making a lot of money, but you have to first understand like what can you do to serve others at a large scale? Like what can you do what can you offer? And what value can you add to people that will always yield you to be in demand? And I think that those are the bigger questions that you need to ask yourself as you think about entrepreneurship, because it's dope to be it's cool to be an entrepreneur. It's dope, but it comes with a lot of trade-offs, right? Like to be able to be successful in that kind of world, it's at first starting off as just you, and then being able to expand and scale your team and have a bigger team. But it's going to require you losing some sleep. It's going to require you having a growth mindset. It's going to require you of shedding. You have to develop new habits, right? These are the things that sometimes we see entrepreneurship online. We just have this. We kind of have this shortcut view of like, you see the gold, but you don't see the grunge, right? So you see the folks, got some bread, I mean, they pulling up in a new whip. They look fresh, new clothes, designer on, whatever, house, whatever. But they're not showing you like, they up for a lot. They getting after it. They grinding, like they really getting after it. Like you have to really readjust your whole calendar, your whole structure, how you going about to work. Like you can't depend on, especially if you get rid of your 9 to 5, you can't depend on that as a safety net. And I'll also say too, I think, like you never want to like using a 9 to 5 to supplement your business. I think is great. A lot of us, I think all three of us are doing that. We've done that in so many different ways. And being, some folks that are in education, but also got our own LLCs and businesses and investing and so on and so forth. Like I didn't go get my doctorate. I'm in a place where, I'm at that stage in my profession where it's like, yo, go get your doctorate. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go into community college and chill for a minute where I don't need no darn doctorate degree to get to where I need to get to. And I don't feel like going to no more debt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that money I would spend for my doctor to get my life coaching certification. I'm going to do all the other things, get my brand pop and do this, do that, and use a skill set that I've been able to hone over time to now leverage it to where I can work with I'm not just married to one school. I can contract with other schools, right? So just think about how you really, leverage your skill set in an intentional way, but understanding that it's going to take, new habits that you need to develop, understanding that it's going to be a lot of long nights and you know what I mean? And that's a part of the process. You know what I mean? You got to respect that process, because sometimes, all these shortcuts, we kind of skip that part of like, yo, there's an actual process to getting to that level of success. All right. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. One thing I want to encourage folks who are thinking about going into the field of entrepreneurship because they want to be rich. Not even just think about if you want to be rich, right? Mm-hmm. Look at what the rich kids are doing, or what the rich parents are sending their kids. They're sending them to college, right? Mm-hmm. So why is it that these people that already have the connections, that already have the wealth? I don't know if y'all remember that scandal that was happening.
For sure. Oh yeah.
From USC and all these different places.
Yeah.
It was really rich people funneling their kids into the university through athletic programs and schools and things like that. Athletic programs,
water polo and all that.
You feel me? And so they were doing this because they understand the benefits of being able to have that degree, right? Like, so being able to have a bachelor's degree or having a master's degree, it allows you opportunities that just being an entrepreneurship, doesn't grant you. And I know that, or just being an entrepreneur, I mean, what I tell students all the time when I talk to them, right? I tell them this, I say, listen, most of your college experience is outside the classroom. It's not just about what you read in the books. The piece of paper you can get, remember, that's just going to class, doing the homework or whatever. One of the key parts about college is networking. Getting involved in organizations, doing some programs, meeting people, connecting with people. The people that I'm talking to right now, I met in college.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I met in college. And so college, one of the key parts of college is the networking experience. Don't get me wrong. The classes are important. The grades are important. The partying is important. The socialization is the most important thing. I was just talking to somebody I went to college with who's a physical therapist. I'm like, oh, snaps. You go hook me up with a program. So it's like, networking is critical. So I just wanted to, for anybody that thinks that college isn't important or entrepreneurship is the way, well, why is your most famous entrepreneur sending their kids to college? Mm-hmm. If college is just not important whatsoever and you don't need to do this, I would say, even if you just do a semester of college and talk to people for a semester, that's better than not going at all. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna be introduced to thousands of tens of thousands of
Rubbing
people
shoulders with so many people.
with that you couldn't even fathom if you were just sitting at home working on your special project. Imagine like being able to, people like J. Cole, right? He was able to leverage his position at his university as the Black Student Union president to then funnel his way into hip hop and music. They leverage those kind of positions. People get information and then they say, how can I take this information and utilize it to my benefit? So I just want to, for anybody that, and that's to answer that question. I appreciate that question, Erica. Hakeem, you got a shake right now? Or you still got some more
what time is it?
It's
I
about
got a little more time. Yeah, I got
you
like
got a
10 more
little bit
minutes.
more time.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
I want to ask you all. So let's just, if there was one reason you would say, I feel like I know the answer, but if y'all could just tell me what's one reason you think just that Black men are not going to college?
Systemic racism, institutional racism. I don't know how else to, like, what else? Keem, you might, I think, but
Bro, come on, man.
It's interesting that sociologists say that.
Yo, come on, man. Like,
I just say
that's it, man. I mean, that's it. I think, and I think on top of that, I think that part of it is systemic racism, but now it's at a tipping point where, like, what we've faced, like, is making us have to reevaluate, and some of us are not choosing college anymore. Like, and I think part of it is like that's so, like, my thing is, like, even when I'm talking to young people, like, who may not want to go to college, I'm as a practitioner, I'm not like, you gotta go to college. Like, I'm not
Absolutely
like,
not.
never.
because there's so many layers. So I'm like, okay, like, what's your plan though? Like,
right.
what do you, what kind of life do you want to live? How do you want to live? And then we can work backwards from there.
My bad to interrupt you, but I also say
yeah.
it's very dangerous to just go to college without a plan. I'm gonna say that too,
Right, yeah.
because a lot of people find
so many of us have done that. You know what I mean?
Getting in debt, getting extra time, because they was just like, I just didn't know. You know what I mean?
And I would go to the limit to say that so many of us, because you got to think about it, right? Because we were told, like, for example, we were told, go to college. I remember when I was first generation student, like, when I got to college, my family like, love you, son. It's like, there's nothing else we could do. Like, you know what I mean? You got to figure it out from here. It's just you, bro.
Be somebody.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, damn, okay, like, there was no strategy. The idea was just go to college. Now we have to have larger conversations, like, go to college and do X, Y, Z and strategize and do that. So our folks didn't know that. But here's the wicked thing. Like, when we made those advances, they found ways to push the goalpost back, right? They pushed the goal. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how that went down. To, like, okay, like, even for, like, a lot of us, like, you heard when you make 6 figures, make 6 figures. Then you get the 6 figures, you're like,
that ain't
it
shit.
don't feel like it. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so all those different things too. So I think a lot of, especially in our community, because I think because we were at such a we were so excluded from education, we had this journey to want to get educated, of course, but we didn't understand, like, the strategy around it as much as other groups did, especially white folks specifically. So I think that's another layer to it as well.
I love that, Malcolm.
I mean, it's like, when I talk to students and they say that they don't want to go to school, and we start to try and, unpack, like, well, what is it that you want to do? What is your plan? I think that it comes down to the conversation of, like, being in a space where there is curriculum versus no curriculum. And so if they are in a space where they currently are very disciplined and very intentional with their time, then, just casting college to the side, I'm like, well, it sounds like you need curriculum, and college is a space where your learning is organized in a way where, you can, progress through steps and layers before you, get to the end goal. And so, I mean, I just think that when we're talking about students in particular who don't want to go to school, I've never talked to a student and try to like sell them on college.
Right,
You know, I get some students, they're like, why should I go here? I'm like, well, it depends on your reasons for why you're looking at college. Like, what are you interested in? What are your career goals, your academic goals? And so it's like we can start, if we start there, and then I can establish what your interests are and what you're looking to do, then I can tell you whether or not this is a space that might help you facilitate those goals. But if you don't have an understanding of what it is that you're looking to do, then let's start there, figure that out, and then we can find out how this experience could be useful for you. And also, if it's not with me, then I'm gonna send them to the school that's appropriate. So as somebody who was a recruiter for 7 years, I was always looking to see what are other schools doing, because if we don't got the program, it ain't no point in you wasting your time coming over here, spending time with us and money with us when you should be going in this direction. And so again, going back to the conversation of Black men and going to college, when I would talk to Black male students, especially, I was very interested in their why and if they had developed a how. And based on their responses, that's how I informed them on what it is that we had to offer as a campus, and then whether or not it was a good fit. And then if they weren't going to Butte, okay, cool. Like where are you trying to go? Because now let me learn about that. Because if I'm talking to you out on the road and you have this interest, that means I'm probably going to run into a student in my local service area that might have similar aspirations. And if I'm knowledgeable about other institutions and what they have to help them do what the student is trying to do, then it's beneficial for me to know those things. So, I think, if you are thinking about not going to college, then you should basically have a curriculum built out, or a solid set of mentors around you that can help guide you through that process. If you're not there yet, then I would recommend, then you should be looking at college. And I get it, 4-year UC, CSU, private, out of state, that might seem like a big jump. Go to your community college, because it's cheap, free in a lot of cases, if it's your first time full-time student out of high school. And then that could be a space where you're unsure. That's where you do your exploration at low cost. Although now they're tightening that up with the financial aid. Now they're saying you got to pick a major, but still, you got electives, and you can figure out what you want to do at a lower cost. And then by the end of it, you'd be surprised. So, I'd say the last thing I'll say is, like, for my bachelor's, I came into school, I wanted to be an on-air radio DJ. Chico State had a media arts program. They did not have a radio only program. So I did TV broadcast, radio broadcast, public speaking, web design, photography, videography, so on and so forth. By the end of it, I was like, oh, I just like media. But I just love media. So now I have all these different avenues that I could tap into that I didn't even know existed if I hadn't gone to school where, they didn't only focus on radio. And so getting out of your comfort zone is also important, and college is one of those spaces to do it.
No doubt. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of comments that's here on the Instagram that has been going up a little bit. When I asked, why do we think Black men don't go to college? My man Mark said exposure to different information and ways of thinking is important. He said, regardless of if you go to college or not, whether it's a degree, trade, or certificate, you have to learn something. 100%. He said, our elders also have a bad habit of telling you to go to college to do this and do that, and then turn around and tell you just because you went to college, you don't mean you know anything. That's a fact. That's a fact. And Erica hopped in and said, you can't really know what your interests are when everyone has a labor job that doesn't sound enticing. That's for sure a fact. Because you also said white kids see different career paths that Black students don't even know about. Absolutely. I was just listening to a podcast this morning. And shout out to everybody that's in the chat. I appreciate y'all. Also know that if you subscribe to the Wise Word Wednesday YouTube channel, you can put your chats in there, and I can actually post the chat. So I saw my boy Tay was in the comments. Tay Hawkins, another Chico State alum. Shout out to my guy. He was in the comments earlier, left a few comments that I posted as we were talking. But I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they talked about how, at these what they call urban schools, which we really know is the Black schools, right? The people of color, Black schools. There's a level of there's a glass ceiling that people hit, because these facilities, it's not even just about the money, the funding, the resources there, but it's about the connections. And what the podcast was talking about earlier was, it was saying, like, a student at some of these schools that are in urban communities, they can't say, like, how do you get into Harvard? right? They can't talk to their person, and their person might not, they might be like, I don't know how to get to Harvard. Like I went to, you know what I mean? I went to high school, graduated, college, graduated, but I didn't go to a school like Harvard. Whereas in some of these white high schools, right, they have teachers that are Harvard alum. They have a brother or sister that might have went to Harvard. They like, oh, I can hook you up with an internship. Like I got connections, I got network. Let me do some pre-interview sessions with you. I know, let me tell you about some books to read that can help you prepare for the interview that you might have to be able to go to these institutions. So absolutely, there's a whole different level that white kids who go to suburban schools see that black students aren't even privy to. So it's kind of like, I always bring it back to that episode of the Boondocks where he's like, there's knowns and then there's unknowns. There's known knowns and then there's known unknowns. And then there's there's unknown unknowns, right? Like there's things like for example, we know that there are stars out there. We know that we don't know how many stars that are out there. What we don't know is whether or not there are people, or whether or not being out there is breathable, because if you inject yourself with this particular, DNA, then you can breathe. We don't know that exists. We have no idea. So it's an unknown unknown. We don't know how to protect ourselves from things that we're not aware of. And so there are young people who are growing up in these schools and they're unable to really increase the trajectory that these white people or these affluent or rich people have, because they don't have the networking, the connection, because they don't even know what they don't know. And I will read one more comment and then I'll let you jump in, Hakeem. He said, sometimes going back to college at an older age is better than going straight out of high school. 100% agree.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Most definitely.
Hakeem, you got any last words you want to, or anything?
I think that's key. I think, I remember being in college, I was at Hampton-Sydney in Virginia, and I'm at a predominantly white private school. So I remember being in econ class, something like I was in microeconomics with one of my peers at the time. And he was just there to be at college. He already had a job lined up with his family's business. Like he was just there to get a skill set. He was playing lacrosse, meeting people, and he already had a situation. Like, you know what I mean? Like these are the type of things that we didn't have even that kind of exposure to. And like for most of us now, it's like, how do we put our kids in position to be able to do that type of thing, right? So for me as a father, as a dad, like with 2 kids, like I want to be in position to where like my kids have a fallback plan where they can leverage their skill set to be able to add to our family business and our family enterprise, and be able to take that mantle to the next stage, right, with their gifting and their skill set. And those are like you said, like with that pretty much that metaphor, you know what I mean, from the Boondocks. Like these are the things we didn't know, but now some of us know these things, so now we have to put these things in motion for our families now, right? So I think about that all the time. Like recently with my son, like I already see it now. Like he doesn't sit still for long. You know what I mean? So like already he's in Tiny Tots, and like I already have to talk to his teacher about, because he's bored with the work. He knows all the work already. They don't give him extra work because he's Tiny Tots, so they're not giving him a lot of stuff.
Bored now. Now he get bored,
and he get bored. He start like being antsy. Like, you know what I mean? And then they're kind of characterizing that antsiness with disruption. You know what I mean? And all this type of thing, right? So these are the things that happen at such an early age, particularly for Black boys and men. And I know we talk about systemic racism. I want to narrow it down to anti-Black male misandry, like in a particular way, like when it comes to what that looks like, right? And so the work of Tommy Curry and Dr. T.S.N. Johnson, all these good brothers that's doing this, what to talk about how it's intentional and deliberate, to create these environments where Black boys cannot thrive, right? One of my favorite books was the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, right, by Kwanzaa Kunjufu, right? I mean, like these type of texts, right? And these are the books that Torre, what he was saying is not talking about these aspects of like our experience, right? When he talk about suspension rates and so on and so forth. So there's a lot there, but I'll land my plane there. But I think that overall, like I'm really excited to see like for how do we coalition build and really find a way to uplift ourselves, and in a particular way lift our boys up and really take ownership of what our education looks like moving forward, strategizing around education, these different pathways, these different careers, entrepreneurship, and like just this new wave of like technological advancement. And also when it comes to like all these different things that we can make, like all the information that we have, using our skill set to make money and find streams of income, using our gifts to really create industry and infrastructure. So I'm excited about that part, because we know these folks, we know the system, like, you know what I mean? We could go in there all day about that. I'm more so like, yo, let's change our mindset now. Let's have a paradigm shift collectively and start figuring out how do we work together in a real way to build some shit for ourselves and for our families and for our babies and for our kids, for sure.
I love that. I love that. Malcolm, man, anything you want to leave the people with?
I think that the primary thing that I just want to push is like when we talk about you know, college and it being an opportunity for Black men in particular, Black boys in particular, it's important that, you know, we always operate with a certain level of vigilance, knowing that, you know, if there is going to be anti-Black maleness in a space, then we have to be strategic on how we move to make sure that they don't find footing to continue to push that narrative, so that way it keeps our Black boys out. And it's one of the unfortunate pieces of being Black and a male, just in my experience, where it's like we already have struggles just like every other person, but then our Blackness makes our struggle very unique. And so while navigating that unique struggle, we also have to continue to press forward. And so I would just say, honestly, I mean, this might sound cheesy, like, you know, we gotta start practicing being kind to ourselves. We gotta start practicing positive self-talk.
Oh yeah,
you know, we gotta practice, getting help, you know, going to therapy, linking up with the homies and making sure we just share how we feel. I mean, Hakeem's a life coach. Like if you need that, like, you got it right here, because there's so much that's already levied against us that, you know, we need to make sure that we're checking in with ourselves and, you know, doing our best to speak well about ourselves. You know, I remember growing up, my mother went out of her way to make sure that she connected me with other Black men in addition to my father, because my father was a breadwinner, so he wasn't present as often as he would have liked to have been. And so she made a point of connecting with 100 Black men, or, you know, making sure that when she enrolled me in school, if there was a Black male teacher, then she put me in that class. And so those are little things that could go a long way. And you know, you'd be surprised at how much of an impact that can have, because I remember every single one of my Black male instructors. I remember every single one of the Black men in my life, where as a young kid, I may have felt like, okay, they just constantly kind of control me and tell me what to do, and, you know, tell me to fix my behavior. But now that at 35 years old, I'm like, you know, I find myself saying the same things to my students. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I think it's important that we take up space as best as we can. And because taking up space puts us in a space where we're vulnerable and can be, you know, at risk, we got to lean on each other to make sure that, you know, we there to help support each other through that process, so that way we can try and push back and make sure that we, you know, support our students and ourselves.
Man, I agree wholeheartedly, man. I think for me, I'm going to take a different angle on it. Kind of a different. I just want people to really be aware of the information they're passing along and its impact on Black men specifically. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I know I made this point earlier. Like, I love Black women. I love the success that Black women have been doing. I love them going into being more entrepreneurs. I love the fact that they're getting education. I love the fact that they're pursuing their careers. I love all those things. But ask yourself, right? If you're saying a message that racist policies and people benefit from, why? Right? Like, the message of Black women are the most educated group, even though that's not true. Again, y'all are dope. Y'all are doing some amazing things. Y'all are increasing your education. If it's not true, why would that be the message that they're promoting? Right? How does it impact your community? Again, you can look it up. I've looked up the numbers. I looked them up this morning. Black men are graduating to earn 3.5% or 3.3% of the degrees awarded. Black women 6.8%. Latino men I think it was 6.6%. Latino, like, it's that I didn't even like. White men are like the most, right?
Yeah, right.
They're the most awarded, like 25%. So it's why would they push that agenda? I think it's very clear if you really understand it, they're pushing the agenda to try to devalue black men, just like they push this agenda that black men don't like black women. Even though, again, I said this earlier, 85% of men that are black men that are married to black women. People say, oh, not when they're rich. That's not true. 85% of black men that are married that make over $100,000 a year are married to black women. So they try to push this narrative that says that black women are out earning black men, even though black women earn about $41,000 a year on average, black men about $44,000 a year. That's not true. But why are they pushing this message? It's because they know if they can get us pitted against each other, then we'll never come together and really destroy what really is affecting us, which is institutional racism, which is systemic racism, which is overt and even covert racism. A lot of these people are pushing these agendas because they know that's where the money is. They know that's where the support is. They know that's where the fun is. And they know that that's where they're going to be able to keep us divided, and they're not going to come back at them. Recognize we want you to be successful. We want you to grow. We want you to learn, but not if it means that you're going to turn against your community to do it. It's not worth it. And I'm telling you now, if they get rid of us, who do you think they're coming for next?
Come on now.
Any last words? Anybody else want to say anything before we get out of here?
That's it, bro.
That was a nice.
Appreciate y'all, man. Thank you for everybody that came and watched the live. Whether you was on Instagram Live, we had a lot of people popping in and out. Appreciate y'all for leaving the comments and things like that. And again, please make sure you subscribe to the Wise Word Wednesday YouTube channel, so that way we can post your comments. So that way I don't have to just read them for my guests. They can actually see it and read it for themselves. If you watched on YouTube Live, I appreciate y'all. We will be back probably to address this topic again the next time I get pissed off and see some stupid stuff like what already posted. So I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna leave y'all with We Fresh. And I love you. Thank you again to Hakeem and Malcolm, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all keep doing great things.
Appreciate you, bro. Love you, bro. Appreciate you.
Love you, bro.